Welcome to the Business Bravery podcast, inspiring stories from coaches and course creators to help you do the next brave thing in your business. Coming up on the Business Bravery podcast.
Well, I invest in myself, and I consider that pretty brave because as a teacher, as an educator, you are told that education as a whole has no money and teachers aren't getting paid enough, which is accurate and true, right? So you're always in this deficit mindset instead of in more of like a positive mindset. And that's what I had to switch, because when I first started, I was scared out of my mind to put down a big deposit like that was going to take so much money out of my bank account. And honestly, I wouldn't be where I am now if I didn't make those investments. So that's another thing that was scary, but also brave at the same time. Mindset creates your reality. That's exactly what it is. And it's so crazy because when I signed up for that group coaching, my mindset was nobody's going to buy from me. And literally no one bought.
I'm your host, Tiffany G, an Australian business and launch coach with 10 years experience in online marketing and the creator of the Brave Launch Framework. I help coaches like you to be brave so you can stop dreaming and start doing that next big brave step and finally make more impact and get more clients. From speaking on camera to selling to launching, my approach to bravery helps you take bigger leaps without the mindset spirals. It's the secret ingredient to bigger results. Today, I'm talking to Adva, an early childhood educator with almost a decade of experience teaching inside the classroom in administration, as an education coordinator and a camp director. Adva helps teachers reignite their love of teaching and create a life they never thought possible. She's also the host of the Shaping Little Minds podcast, a top-rated podcast in her industry, which you can find on Spotify and iTunes. In this conversation, Adva and I dive deep into topics like burnout, mindset, manifestation, comparing yourself to others, and the myth of the overnight success. I can't wait to share with you Adva's stories of business bravery, past, present, and future. Now, who's ready for some business bravery inspiration? Let's dive in. Hi everyone, I am here this week with the amazing Adva, who I've just checked how to pronounce her name and hopefully I've done it okay. 2-second goldfish memory. All right, awesome. I've got the thumbs up. So yes, I haven't entirely butchered it, but yes, that is my new nightmare. Although I had a fun nightmare where I had on somebody's post I was sharing about them being on the podcast last week, I did the wrong title, and so I had to like repost the entire post and do an apology and everything like that. It's just yeah, anyway, I saw potential where she didn't see potential. She's like, that's not what I am. I'm not a launch coach. I'm like, oh, sorry. Anyway, so yeah, I'm here with the amazing Adva, and we're going to dive into all of her amazing business and her coaching that she does. And she coaches teachers, and I'm going to let her tell us all about it. So Adva, please tell us about your business, and also tell us what brave things you're doing in your business at the moment.
Sure. First of all, you didn't butcher it. My name, you did great. It was awesome. It's a really hard name, so no worries. In terms of my business, I help teachers reignite their love for teaching and create the life that they want. Basically, what happens is teachers get consumed in teaching, which is very normal. And then they lose a sense of who they are outside of teaching. And that's kind of where I bring them back. So I try to really help them. That's through my one-on-one coaching. But I am also working on something for the summer to help teachers reboot and kickstart their year. Obviously, I know in Australia it's winter at the moment, but for those of you in the States, it's summer. And so basically in August, what I'm going to end up doing is doing a 3-day boot camp for teachers to kickstart their year and to learn about all different facets of how to make the first 2 weeks of school amazing. And then something brave that I'm actually doing is I'm actually spilling different hot takes on the world of education, on the world of teaching, on my Instagram. So, and it's very interesting getting all the feedback from people about it, because I have views that are a little spicy and a little bit different than a lot of people. And it's been fun. It's been fun.
Oh man, that's amazing. Can you give us an example of one of your spicy takes? I know for coaches listening, just it can always be hard for us to maybe think about, okay, what is my own take that's a bit outside of what everybody else thinks and things like that. I know when I'm working with my clients, it can be, so, what do you do differently, or what do you think about differently? And there can be a big pause. And so I'd love some example of what you're doing, and yeah.
Sure. So one hot take, and this is one of my favorites,
Yeah.
is teaching is just a job.
Mm.
And when I polled my Instagram followers about this hot take, I got a lot of resistance, because if teaching were just a job, then I wouldn't be putting this much effort into it, or I wouldn't care so much about spending time with my students and getting to know them. And I found it really interesting that this was like the reaction, because when I say teaching is just a job, it doesn't mean that you care any less. It doesn't mean that you put any less work into it. It just means that it's a job and that you're there to do it. And when you leave, that you leave it behind and you go live your life.
Mm.
And that is actually very hard for a lot of educators who have been in the world for so long to kind of step back and see it that way.
Mm. Wow, yeah, I can see that. Just for anybody listening, I've actually spent a couple of years teaching, although teaching English in other countries and things like that. But yeah, I can definitely understand that. And even for me, like I bring that into my coaching. Like I too struggle to leave it at home. I'm like sometimes thinking about my clients and their businesses, like while I'm having a shower, and it's like, oh, there's an idea and things like that. And so I can genuinely appreciate the struggle they might have with that, actually, like maybe we can take a step back and leave some of
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was that teacher also. I couldn't
Mm.
leave it at the door. Like
Yeah.
I had to bring it home with me. And what was happening was that I was burning myself out.
Mm.
And that's when things needed to really change,
Mm.
which is why that's my view now.
And like, what do you suggest, like, as steps for like leaving it behind for the teacher who's really struggling, or if that's not giving everything away?
So there are a few things. No, actually, it's not, because I've shared this all on my podcast. There are a few things. There's the boundary issue that a lot of teachers struggle with. They struggle with sticking to a boundary. So if they are struggling to leave work at work or to keep it at the door, then they'll be like, but I just have this. It won't take me that long. It won't, whatever. And then they won't stick to the boundary and they'll bring it home anyway. Or, some teachers don't really have boundaries with their administrators. So the administrator will call at 8 o'clock at night and they'll pick up the phone anyway.
Mm.
Like, it's like little things that you can be doing to kind of minimize how much work you're doing outside of your hours as a teacher.
Mm.
And even like a big part of minimizing that is also like your ability to manage time, because as teachers, we don't get a lot of time during the day, and it's all about how you prepare yourself for that day or for that week, which is what I do inside of my coaching program.
Mm.
I help teachers kind of prioritize and figure out what they need to get done every single day and when they can get it done, so that they can leave work at work or leave at contracted hours and be totally okay to live their life in the evening.
Mm. Wow. And yeah, that must be so valuable for them to actually make that shift and make that change, right? Like it must be a whole different life on the other side of having those boundaries. Is that right? Yeah.
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 Yeah. I mean, they feel the person that I'm working with right now, when she first came to me, she was stressed out, she was burnt out. She couldn't wrap her head around how she was going to survive the rest of the school year.
Mm.
And it was November when she came to me. And she now is asking for promotion. She is like living life. She's having so much fun. She's not worried about what her classroom looks like in the evening or what her classroom looks like during the weekends. She's literally like, she's able to have fun and also enjoy the teaching. And it's just so crazy because over the last, she signed with me twice. So this is already the second round with her. But over the last 6 months, it's been like a whirlwind of a change. It's crazy how much can change in that time period.
Wow. Yeah. And so you were talking before about your spicy takes and things like that. How do you step into that bravery to show up and be like, no, this is my thing. I know you guys all think differently or everybody says this. How did you get the inspiration to do that? And how do you just step into that as a coach and a leader?
Well, I had my own mentors who had their own hot takes about coaching, about the industry, and I also wanted to be different. You know, there are a lot of people who are coaching teachers. There's a lot of people who are creating courses for teachers, but I wanted to have a different stance. I didn't want to have the same view as everybody else. And yes, it's scary, don't get me wrong, but I think when you stick out and you stand out as a coach, people end up coming to you more often. Because if you're just running the same game as everybody else, you don't look any different. You're the same as the last coach that they spoke to, so why would they hire you over her? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, 100%, 100%. And it's the kind of thing I'm advising like my clients to do and things like that. But by the same token, it doesn't always come easily to all of us. Just that whole, yeah, thinking about, okay, where do we think differently? It's like sometimes we might have to train ourselves into, okay, how can we think differently? How can we approach this differently? And
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also about mindset and how you approach, how you think about what you're saying. So if you think that what you're saying is this terrible thing, then of course you're not going to feel good about it, right? But if you're thinking, okay, this is what makes me different than other people, then you're going to feel great about it because look, you're making a difference. You're showing up in a way that's different than everybody else. And you have, you have that like one up from all the other coaches that are doing the same thing every single day. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Oh, so yeah, so your spicy takes is a brave thing that you're doing. Are there any other brave things that you're doing or?
Well, I invest in myself and I consider that pretty brave because as a teacher, as an educator, you are told that education as a whole has no money and teachers aren't getting paid enough, which is accurate and true, right? So you're always in this deficit mindset instead of in more of like a positive mindset. And that's what I had to switch because when I first started, I was scared out of my mind to put down a big deposit like that was going to take so much money out of my bank account. And honestly, I wouldn't be where I am now if I didn't make those investments. So that's another thing that was scary, but also brave at the same time.
So tell us a little bit more about that first investment you made in yourself. Like I mean, we all have to come to that conclusion eventually, right? For the most part. Like, I don't know anybody who's built their huge business off little, like, $10 short courses and things like that, right? So yeah, like what was it about that person that made you invest? And yeah, sorry.
So I had gotten into personal development, personal growth. So I started reading Rachel Hollis's books. I don't know if you are familiar with them. Girl, Wash Your Face, Girl, Stop Apologizing. Those two really were the ones that inspired me to really take my business to the next level. I knew someone through her, so I started paying her for one-on-one coaching. I did not like one-on-one coaching with this person. I spent about $1,000 with her and I was like, nope, it's not happening anymore. What my biggest investment next, I wanted to create courses at the time. My business has evolved over the last few years. I wanted to create courses for early childhood teachers. And what I decided was I was going to invest in Amy Porterfield's digital course academy. And that was $2,000.
Yeah.
It is worth every penny if you decide that you want to create courses. but it's a big investment. And I still have access to it. So anytime I want to do a webinar, anytime I want to create something for my clients inside of the portal, I can always go back to that and review all of this, all of the things that she has in her portal, because every year she upgrades it. So, and we just get updates from previous years. We get the updates from the following year. So I think that was my first like really big investment. Oh, and a $2,000 group coaching program.
Mm. Did you like the group coaching more than the one-on-one?
Yeah, actually, no, I like one-on-one a lot more than group coaching.
Mm.
I think the one-on-one that I had initially signed up for was just not the right fit for me, because I've done one-on-one since, and I love it. So the group coaching was interesting, and it was just like at the beginning of my like offers being out and whatever. And it's, I've learned a lot over the last few years about how to run a business and what to do and how mindset affects your business like crazy. And it really, like, mindset creates your reality. That's exactly what it is. And it's so crazy because when I signed up for that group coaching, my mindset was nobody's going to buy from me. And literally no one bought.
Oh, man.
So
100%. I do know, like, I've been in online marketing for 10 years. I've been building my business for 6 of those. And
wow.
it was, people ask me what's been your biggest struggle, and it's always been the mindset thing. And like for years I thought, like, I saw people talking about mindset and I was like, oh yeah, I'll worry about that when I get to 6 figures. Right now I've just got to earn money. And I didn't realize that complete break and how I was working against myself on that side of things. Like, that's probably why I'm so fascinated with Bravery, and I love talking about this stuff, because for me, like, it wasn't some magical marketing strategy that changed things for me. It's been the mindset side of things. Does that make sense? Like I've tried so many of the marketing strategies. Believe me, if it was going to be a marketing strategy that was going to get me all the way, I would have made that happen. And even my clients, the people who made the biggest inroads and the best results were people who understood mindset and knew how to manage their mind in some way. And
it's still something I'm working on.
Likewise, I think it's going to be a lifelong thing. I don't think it's ever going to be a case of, oh no, my mindset is perfect and I never have to work on it again. Like, it just, that's not how our brains work, I don't think.
Yeah. So it's funny because I started my business 3 years ago. I only started making money this year, 22, at the end of 22. And the reason being is because I was self-sabotaging, and I didn't believe in what I was selling. And it's so crazy to me that, like, from that, in 2023, I've been on like 6 or 7 podcasts. I have my own. I have people reaching out about sponsorships. And it's like things just started turning when my mindset and when I started to coach myself. But I also invested in myself. So like it was a combination of the two, but it's still, like, that mindset is a lot. And it's a lot of work. And if you don't believe in what you're selling, you're not selling it.
Yeah, 100%. Although, like, even me, it's like I'd believe in what I was selling, but I would still have this track underneath it in my brain of like, oh, but they won't buy this from me, right? Like, nobody
will buy it from me. Nobody will give me money. Why would they?
Yeah. Like, if this was something that the person next to me or even you yourself were offering, like, people would buy it from other people, just not me. Like, even though I believed in what I was doing, it was just, that like just that self-worth and everything is just a huge key. So
it's a self-fulfilling prophecy is basically what you end up doing to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, if you don't think that anyone's gonna buy it from you, nobody will.
That's
all there is to it.
Yeah, exactly. So Yeah. And definitely like I'm always sort of like making steps forward on this side of things and stuff like that. Like even this podcast, like I always had in my head, oh, when I get to 6 figures, that's when I'll start the podcast because it takes time and all that. And yeah, I was just like miserable in my business, just making little bits of money here and there and everything. And then I just was like, okay, I'm tired of waiting. And I had my coach said, what would you be doing in your business if you already had $1 million in the bank? Like, what would you be thinking, feeling, and doing? And I was like, oh, well, that's easy. I'd start a podcast. I'd be, promoting other people. I wouldn't be as worried about where I'm making my money. So then I started doing all that stuff. And now, yeah, my podcast, like a ton of people have turned around and said, yes, we want to be involved, even though I'm just starting out and I don't have this big audience behind me. And yeah, like I've got spots booked out. I'm talking to people. I'm connecting with people. It's just been amazing on that side of things.
Yeah.
So yeah.
When you act the way you would act if you were making that kind of money, things just start coming to you. It's so funny because you talk about this and I mean, even now, like money has been tight here because I'm doing construction, whatever else. My computer crashed last weekend. I was flipping out about how I was going to afford a new computer. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a Mac. They're expensive and I will not go back to a PC. So my computer crashes. I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? How am I going to make this money? Whatever. I go into Best Buy, I buy it, I put myself on like a crazy payment plan. I do things that I would never have done in the past. Like I put myself on a payment plan, I open up a credit card with them so I can do the payment plan without interest. Like I became psycho. I then literally that day, I get 2 podcast sponsorship opportunities, which will give me the money.
Yeah.
I get a refund for something that I did here, and I get money in from a client. And I'm like, oh, the universe knew I needed this money. So it's crazy. Like when you're thinking about how it's not possible, the universe shows you otherwise.
Yeah. Oh wow. That is
you're like woo woo like that, but
yeah. Oh no, I'm getting more and more woo woo. Like it's just I can't ignore it. Like yeah, I just can imagine that feeling of like I've had it before where I've had a computer and it's like pressing the on button and it's just black and it's like, come on, what's and it's just like everything in me is just gone cold, like my blood's turned cold and it's just like my life revolves around this machine. And especially like in our online businesses, like this is how we make money. So yeah, I would have absolutely been like you and it's like, yep, give me all the credit, we got to get this thing going. Because yeah, I mean, I suppose you could try and just make money off your phone, but for me that would be a little bit harder.
I mean, my phone is so small. I can't do all the work that I'm doing on my computer. Like,
yeah, true.
It's not possible for me. I live off my computer. And it's funny because they told me, they were like, you can get it shipped off and fixed, but it's going to cost you just as much as a new computer. So I was like, forget it. I'm getting a new computer.
Yeah.
It's not worth
it. Yeah, exactly. Oh man. Yeah, that's awesome that you also had all that money coming in. I love celebrating when things align like that and the money comes in and it's just like yeah.
I feel like when you're like crazed and you don't know where the money's going to come from and then you just make the investment anyway. I think that's when the universe kind of shows you and gives you back that money. Like you have a potential client or you have a podcast sponsorship or you just come into money for whatever reason. I feel like that's when the universe kind of is like, I got you. No worries.
Yeah. Although I've found from my experience, like it's got to come from like when I'm making that investment, it's got to come from sort of confidence and certainty. When it comes from a place of complete stress and worry and I'm shaking and and my thoughts for the next couple of days or weeks or something are all like, what am I doing? This isn't going to work. What am I doing? This isn't going to work. Then that's when like I don't get the influx of good stuff that happens. Like at least that's been my experience. Have you found that or?
Yeah. So that's exactly what, so I was, when I bought the computer, I was thinking, okay, now I can get my work done. I have a new computer to start like navigating, and I got this. And I wasn't thinking about how am I going to afford this? When am I going to pay this off? I was literally like, when I get a new computer, my computer will function properly so that I can actually get my work done. Because before, my computer wasn't functioning properly. It wasn't charging, it was turning off. Like in the middle of a conversation, it would just shut down. So so I was in this place where, like, yes, it was scary to make the investment, but I knew if I got a new computer, I would actually be able to get my work done.
Mm.
And that
Yeah.
felt good.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, so usually on the podcast, after talking about the stuff that you're doing now, I kind of go into some stuff that you did before. I don't know, have you had a business before this? Is this your first business or
First
no?
business and
Oh,
hopefully
wow.
last.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they're going to be like my dream has always been to open up my own preschool. So that would be an extension of the business, but it wouldn't be like the business itself, I guess, that I guess we could call it another business, but it's not an establishment yet. So before I started the business, I was a full-time teacher in the classroom with toddlers, so 2 and 3-year-olds.
Oof. Sorry.
6 years, yes. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, like I love teaching, and I suppose my experience of teaching was, after I finished university, I went over to South Korea to teach English. I got on a plane, I got off the plane, I didn't know any of the language. I went to a school and they were like, "Oh, there's the classroom, here's the book, here's what page you're on." And that was my training. So that was my experience. And yeah, I mean, luckily for me, I'm always the one teaching people stuff. Like that's part of how I learn. I love turning around and then teaching others and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I did it eventually actually get some certification and learn more teaching skills and things. But yeah, I just know for me, those younger years, they were challenging for me, especially when English was not their first language. So yeah, that's and them and then the teenagers. So yeah, that was
Oh yeah, I wouldn't work with teenagers.
yeah.
That's why I work with little ones. But you know what? They all have their stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I did that for 7 years. I was in the classroom, and
Yeah.
I'm still in and out of the classroom. I do a lot of maternity leaves. I have an opportunity to work for the state, helping children who have developmental disabilities, or developmental delays, more like it. So I'm still working closely with children, but I don't do that full time anymore.
Mm. Nice, nice. Do you find it helpful to keep working with children a bit? Like, do you enjoy it just doing it part-time like that? Or why do you keep that going? I'd imagine you could focus solely on coaching if you wanted to, or
So there's a mix of things. So I would love to focus solely on the coaching, but it's not making enough money for me to be able to live my life here. It's very expensive because I'm right next to the city. So I try to do the teaching part-time so that at least I'm getting some kind of an income. But also I would like to keep working closely with children so that as the education system keeps changing, I'm up on it and I'm able to teach teachers how to work with that. So I like to kind of stay close.
yeah. That makes complete sense. Awesome.
Yeah.
So when you were teaching and then you were like what inspired you to then decide to start coaching? How did you find out about that? What brave steps did you make to move into that side of things?
Yeah. So my 5th year of teaching, well, my first year of teaching, let's just go with my first year of teaching, I had a bachelor's degree in psychology. I didn't know anything about lesson planning, classroom management, nothing that goes along with the teaching aspect. And I was put into
Nice.
a
That
classroom.
makes me feel
Yeah,
better about my story earlier.
yeah. Oh, you're good. I was
Yeah.
put into the classroom that first year.
Mm,
I wasn't given a lot of guidance. I wasn't given a lot of support, or at least not the support that I needed.
mm,
And I, what I did that year, after that year, I was scared I was going to lose my job.
mm,
And after that year, I promised myself it would never happen again.
mm.
So I went back to school. I got another bachelor's in early childhood, and I took it upon myself to really like take the lead in the classroom.
Mm,
And then my fifth year of teaching, my first 3 years, I was a second language teacher. So I worked in a private Jewish day school, and I speak Hebrew. So I was able to teach the language.
mm,
That's what I did my first 3 years. Then my fourth year, I actually left because I didn't like teaching a second language. I left and I ended up in a public school as a paraprofessional working with a child who was on the autism spectrum one-on-one. And then that year I was actually called from the school that I was working at before, and they asked me to come be the lead teacher, so the
mm,
general studies teacher. And that year there was another teacher across the hall from me who had a lot going on at home also, but really struggled and didn't get the support that she needed, didn't get the help that she needed, and she ended up being fired.
mm,
And this was while I was taking leadership courses within the education world to get my master's.
mm,
And I was like, this needs to change. Like, this can't happen anymore. That like teachers are coming in and they're not getting the support. And it's not only in the
mm.
school that I was in, it's happening everywhere.
Yeah.
It can't happen that these teachers are coming in and they have no idea what's flying.
Mm,
And then next thing you know, they're fired because they didn't meet expectations.
mm,
So my goal was to change the way specifically early childhood teachers were supported in the classroom.
mm,
And then I noticed, my patterns and how I was, when I wanted to prove myself, I ended up going back to school and I worked really, really hard. And then I lost who I was outside
mm,
of the classroom. So like there's a mix of my experiences and what I saw, which brought me to where I am today, which is I do one-on-one support for teachers.
mm,
I dive into the classroom and making the classroom more an easier place to be and less chaotic. And then also once the classroom feels more under control, then then you feel like your life is more under control and like you can live your life outside of the classroom. So that was like the long version of how I got here. But but yeah, it was a lot.
mm. Yeah, no, that's okay. I like the long version. That's why I record for so long. Like, I find it so easy for people to just be like, and then I had this moment where I didn't know what I was doing, and then I worked it out. And yet, actually, that time when we didn't know what we were doing, or those hard parts, they feel like 10 years, even though it might have been a few months or a year or something. And like that's just where
Yeah.
I think. I don't know, like I find the inspiration in knowing that other people have found it challenging at times, and it wasn't just, and then I worked it out, and let's just celebrate. Do you get where I'm coming
Yeah.
from? So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's this
Mm,
whole idea of like an overnight success
mm,
because that doesn't actually happen.
yeah. Yes.
Like these people that you see who are making 7,
Mm,
8 figures, they've worked 10
mm,
years to get there.
mm,
They haven't worked just 1 year and all of a sudden they're making millions. I
yeah.
mean, like, listen, it does happen for some
Mm,
people, but
yeah.
not for most.
Yeah.
And that was actually something that I really struggled with also within my business was this
Mm,
idea that these people are like making multi-million and I'm like sitting here trying to sell one thing and nobody's buying.
mm,
And that really got me. And it got me for like the first 2 years of business. And
mm,
as I said before, like I didn't really start making money until last
mm,
year, November.
mm,
So I really had to work through my
mm,
mindset and through all the shit that was happening in my life. So like it wasn't just like easy peasy and I just did it.
mm,
I feel like that's a lot of times that's what the coaching
mm,
world puts
mm,
off. Like they pretend like everything is
mm,
fine and dandy, but it's not because it's not that
mm.
easy.
Yeah.
And And I also was like, when I make 6 figures, this is what I'm going to do. But like, where's that going to get me? It's
Yeah.
true. It's not going to get me anywhere.
Yeah, gosh, it's just so funny. Like, sorry, what were your plans of what were you going to do when you got to 6 figures? Like, what were your thoughts there? Yeah.
I wanted a podcast manager. I wanted a virtual assistant to help me. I planned out who I was going to
Yeah.
hire
Yeah. Oh my
and
God,
what I
yeah.
was going to not do anymore.
Oh God,
That's
yeah.
what I planned. Like
Yeah.
the little things, like what I'm planning for the summer and what I'm doing with my one-on-one, like it wasn't like when I get to 6 figures, that's when I'm gonna do it. But like the hiring out, which I still haven't done. Like I haven't hired anyone out. I'm doing it because I'm not making enough to do it. But like that was my thought. When I make 6 figures, I'm like, I can hire out when I'm not making 6 figures and I'll be okay. But like it's this whole idea that like when you make a certain amount, that's when you'll be at your top, which in reality, I don't know if you're like this, but I'm the one who like can picture what 5 years down the line will want, what I want 5 years down the line to look like. Like I visualize what I want to happen in my business. I'm like the creative. Like I have ideas all the time about what I can do in my business, and I get so excited. I'm like, wait a minute, take a step back. Yeah, you understand
Yeah,
me. Yeah.
100%, 100%. Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's why I also need the accountability. So like I invest in myself all the time. Do I have the money always for it? No. But I invest in myself because I need someone who's going to be like, okay, shut it down. Like focus on this first. Because I have those like thoughts, like, what if I do this? What if I do this? What if in 2 years from now I do like, no, focus on the now, like and what's interesting is that like, I have done those prompts of, okay, how would I act if I was booked out and had all the money and was doing this always like full time, no question. There was no scarcity. How would I act? Well, I would show up and I would be confident about it. And I would know that my program is amazing. And my coach was like, okay, then show up as that person. But it's easier said than done.
Yeah. What was your what was your first thought when your coach said show up like that now? Like,
I was like, okay, I'll try.
okay.
And I even said, how? Like, I'm not that person. She's like, but you are. She's like, if you want to get there, how else are you going to show up?
Yeah.
And even now, there are days where I'm just like, forget it, I'm not showing up. I can't do it today. But at the end of the day, like I end up, when I do show up, I show up like that.
Yeah.
I have to. Otherwise, how am I going to get to 6 figures?
And is that when you started seeing the shift? I mean, you probably said it before, but like what shifts did you see as like results in your business by starting to show up more like that? Is that when you started getting the sponsorships and the money and things like that?
I started showing up as the business owner that I wanted to be. And I started doing things something that I've been struggling with is this idea of like my addiction to social media. It's bad. I'm literally this weekend, the only reason I checked it was because I knew we were getting on a call today. But outside of that, I haven't checked social media. I haven't posted on it. And it's something that I'm really working on, because what I end up doing is that I end up scrolling and then I end up comparing myself. And then it's this whole battle of, am I really worthy of this business, or should I just go back to teaching? And so that's something that I struggle with a lot. And I made the intentional like decision to completely sign out of social media this weekend. Not on my phone, not on my computer, just sign out. And that's been my biggest struggle with my business, is that I compare my metrics to other people. I'm like, but I only have 500 followers and they have 13K. Like, what am I comparing? So yeah, so like I feel like in order to get to that place of showing up as that person, I also needed to distance myself from the things that were causing me to question.
Mm.
And that's really hard because I'm addicted. And I'm sure most people are who are
Mm.
listening to this podcast.
Oh man, yeah, I hear that a lot just about how like going through social media and comparing yourself and stuff like that. I haven't had that same experience. Like for me, when I see that, I see the people, it's like, oh, that's, hey, that's possible. Cool. You know, that means I can do it. Like that's sort of
Mm.
how I process it. And yeah, although not to say that I haven't had those moments of comparison and those moments of, for me, it's when somebody's like, oh, I just ran my launch and I made 25K, and or or sometimes the other people that get to me, and I don't know if I should say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm going to be brave and just sort of say, like, people who are like, I didn't know that I wanted to have a business. And then, you know, I just stumbled along and then people wanted to work with me. And so, like, for my background,
You know
my
why?
parents, like, my parents built a business when I was young. They built a
Mhm.
7-figure business. And,
Amazing.
like, that's when I decided I wanted to have a business. I just didn't know in what. And, like, I've always been working at that dream. And yeah, it's just like, man, like I love that it's possible for them, but I also sort of get a little bit envious of just like, oh, I didn't know I wanted a business and then it just happened and then I made money and yeah.
I think also the people who are saying those things are the people who
Mm.
are posting consistently about a specific topic.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
like I follow someone who's an educator
Mm.
who was posting consistently about her classroom management skills.
Mm.
And then she created a course, and now she has over 30,000 students who have gone through that classroom management course.
Mm.
Okay. And this course is not a very expensive course. Like I've had my teachers take it. Like it,
Mm.
it's like really, it's really amazing what she does. But she also like, she didn't really know she wanted a business until she wanted a business. But she also had an audience already that
Mm.
was following her for those reasons. And when she
Yeah.
created that course, her
Mm.
audience was ready to just hop in it and get into it. You
Mm.
know, like I think those people who like are like, I didn't mean to do this. Well, yeah, you didn't mean to, but you have the audience. So it
Mm.
makes sense that you're making money that quickly. Does that
Mm.
make sense? And
Yeah. Yeah.
honestly, when I'm scrolling and I see these things, like
Mm.
I also do like, how did you do it? And I didn't like, I don't understand. But at the end of the day, like logically, if you think about it, those are the
Mm.
people that are posting consistently about one specific topic that they're really good at, whether
Yeah.
it's, you know, like handling the stress of being a mom, whether it's classroom management, whether it's like, it doesn't really matter what it is.
Mm.
They've been posting about these things for a long time now.
Mm.
And so when they post that they're creating something that someone can buy and they have 10,000 followers already,
Mm.
they're going to buy it.
Yeah. Yeah. And just excuse me, sort of circling back to some stuff we were talking about earlier, like from my perspective, they probably didn't also have like that track in the back of their head like I did from my experience of, you know, nobody wants to buy this from me. Like it's just, I think
Yeah.
when I had that track going in my brain, even though I was posting consistently about things, at least to my mind, and yeah, doing that kind of stuff, it was still with that track. It it just sort of put something out into the universe, and it's sort of like the universe doesn't quite
It
respond when
blocked you
it's
from it
yeah.
blocked you from receiving the
Mm.
what you wanted,
Yeah, yeah,
which
like
is yeah, that's why I say my mindset creates your reality.
yeah, yeah, 100%. It's kind of like trying to do business with both, like with both the accelerator and the brake on at the same time. Like for me, it's just like, yeah. And I used
Yep.
to hear people talk about that and I'd be like, yeah, yeah, I'm glad I'm not like that. Now I'm just like, oh, I actually probably was doing that and I'm still working on it. Like it's just, yeah.
You
So
have to. I
yeah.
feel like as a business owner, you just have to keep working on it. It doesn't
Mm.
ever get any better because I think even multimillionaires who are working in their business for 15 years and they're making 8 figures,
Mm.
they still have a running track saying, how am I worthy of this? Who am I to do this?
Mm.
which is, it's true. I mean, I mentioned her before, Amy Porterfield. I don't know if you know who she is.
Yeah, 100% done a couple of her courses, not the Digital Course Academy, but she had one for like opt-ins and lead generation years ago that I did. Yeah.
List Builder Society. That's email list. Amy Porterfield talks about all of the imposter syndrome that she still feels, and she runs a multi-7-figure business.
Mm-hmm.
DCA launches make her millions, and still she has that imposter syndrome. So it just goes to show you that it doesn't matter what stage of business you're at, you're still going to have that. And that's why you have to work at it.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, that's definitely like for me why I kind of like look at it in the terms of like bravery and stuff like that, because it's like still taking those steps and managing your mind through it. And yeah, just just thinking about that, and just, oh man, I hope that I'm not still got as well. Obviously I couldn't have as much imposter syndrome as I've had over the last few years at that level, because I probably wouldn't get to that level if it stayed at that level. So yeah,
you have to work on it. Just keep working.
Yeah,
that's what I would say.
Awesome.
And keep coaching yourself, like coach yourself through those things, and make sure you have someone who's supporting you as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I mean, like, I'm sure you have this with your clients and things like that too. It's like having somebody that you can talk to that can see your blind spots, because like even though you can coach yourself, having someone else to point out those thoughts you don't even think about that are holding you back. Like, have you had that sort of experience before?
Yeah, it's funny. One of my clients is she's a teacher, obviously. She's an assistant teacher, and she was struggling in the classroom with the other teachers in the class. And she kept saying to me, but like, I shouldn't be the one to do this. Like, I'm not the lead teacher. And I literally was like, but what if this is just you proving yourself? Like, what if this is you showing the director that you've got it and you know how to handle this stuff when it comes to your way? What if you are the one who is showing the lead teacher what the expectation is in the school, because the lead teacher is brand new? And like when I changed the mindset for her, she was like, oh yeah, I could do that. And so like we would coach on these mindsets, like these things that like would pop up, and she'd be like, but I'm not supposed to be doing that. I'm only the assistant. I'm like, but what if you didn't think about it that way? What if you thought about it a little differently? Tweak that thought.
Yeah.
So,
oh man. Yeah. That's so powerful. Yeah. So just trying to think of some questions to ask next. I'm just thinking about the power of that too. It's just sort of amazing. So yeah. So what kind of things do you have planned for the next few months, and brave things? Like, do you plan, we were talking before where you said like you can see the vision, so you obviously plan really far ahead. And
I love planning.
I meant to say it that before as well, but the conversation didn't go there actually, that I, like you, I can visualize really far ahead. My biggest struggle is like, oh, but right now I'm just writing this blog post, and it's like, no, where's my team? I can see them. Why aren't they here? You know what I mean? It's like I'm not one of those people you have to talk into hiring out. I do have a couple of people who work for me part-time and on like contractors and stuff like that. So
Amazing.
yeah. So I have someone.
Your vision.
Hey, sorry.
You're building your vision.
Yeah. And it's definitely helped me a lot. And for things like, staying consistent with social media, like I have someone who does the graphics and the scheduling. So it's like, I have to get that to her. It's like not having an audience of hundreds of people or whatever. That's not the motivation that gets me to post. It's like, she's waiting for me. She needs work. So,
she needs stuff to do. Yeah. So in terms of like my future, Right now, my biggest focus is one-on-one and really booking my one-on-one coaching clients out completely. And I have a boot camp coming up in the summer for teachers. So those are like the two biggest focus. What I would like to do also, this is where my vision comes into play. I would like to also, something that I've always visualized doing is doing professional development for schools. So being hired to speak to teachers about a certain subject. And another thing another thing is working actually within the school as a coach. So basically what I would do is I would take that my one-on-one program and make it more so like a group, because they would get it as one price. So it would be kind of a mix of one-on-one and group. And this is actually offered. It would be paid for by the school, not by the teachers themselves. And it would be 5 teachers who would sign up together. The school would pay for it, and they would have one-on-one coaching every week, each of those teachers, plus they would get 3 group coaching calls. And then, 90 days later, what would happen is I would regroup with them, and like we would talk about our wins, we would talk about frustrations and anything else that might be coming up, kind of as an end to the program. That's something that's on the table right now. It's not something I'm focusing on right now, but it's on the table.
On
Lots
the
of stuff.
table, on the table in terms of you're starting to think about it, or you've maybe approached a couple of schools, or
I have approached a couple of schools. I haven't approached schools in a while. I've been really focused on mostly like really focused on the one-on-one clients that are coming in. And those are like private clients in many ways, I guess you can call it. But that's something that was on the table, and I'm going to start bringing back, because I think it can help a lot of schools and it can take a lot of pressure off of their supervisors.
awesome. Yeah. So what kind of like pressures does that relieve for the supervisors then by having you as part of that? Yeah.
So it's the pressure of having to support every single teacher in their preschool program. And I'm not saying that supervisors shouldn't be involved in it, because that sometimes like can be an iffy subject. But a lot of times supervisors have a lot on their plate. Like they're not only supporting teachers, they're supporting parents, they're supporting the students, they're talking to the other administrators and have meetings with other administrators, and they're figuring out finances with the financial director and whatever else. So there's a lot on their plate. And if I can come in as another person who can help, especially with their newer and struggling teachers, and get those teachers on par, then why not? And they would be as involved or as uninvolved as they want to be. So the directors can be on those group coaching calls. They cannot be. They can be on the 90-day, on the last call where all of us get together. They cannot be. And like our one-on-one calls, I would have a system where the directors would know exactly what was happening and what was triggering the teacher, what went really well for the teacher, so that the director can also talk to that teacher throughout the program and know exactly what's happening. So they would be involved.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. So of the things that you've got coming up then, like what is any of that outside of your comfort zone? Like do you you probably don't even see it as that, or like do you need bravery, or like what are those points where you're like, okay, got to get myself into the zone, or
Yeah. So one of my biggest struggles is outreach. I hate doing outreach. I don't like it. I think it's salesy, and it doesn't feel good to me. And it's something that I need to do because I don't know all the administration in all the schools in this area or even in any other areas. And so I have to do that outreach, and I've done it a few times, and I just have to keep doing it. And I haven't done it in a while.
What exactly do you mean by outreach? Is that just like getting in touch with someone and sort of saying, hey, like, I mean, because if you're getting in touch with a school, it's like you sort of can't be like, hey, so what did you do on the weekend to like build a relationship? It's sort of like you've got to be a bit more, hey, like, oh, here's this thing that I do, and just letting you know I'm in the area. Or does it need to be a pitch, or like what is
So
that?
really,
Yeah.
so for me right now, the focus is on connections with supervisors over LinkedIn. I haven't done that in a while, but I'm getting back to it. Uh, and also outreach is honestly like emailing someone and saying, "Hey, this is what I have to offer. Would you be open to a conversation?" And the the biggest thing is like when they don't respond is to reach back out again. But I also know that I do have some connections. So I'm able to use those connections to get the calls that I want to get. Whether or not they go with the program that I'm offering them, it's still a connection that I can use. So it really depends on the school and who I'm reaching out to.
Yeah. Of course. So how do you get yourself through that moment of like, oh, I don't want to do this, but I know I have to do this? How do you like, what's your process for moving through that?
So one thing, I'm a big journaler. I love
Me too.
journaling.
Yeah.
I haven't done it in a few days, but something that I would do is probably journal about how I'm feeling. And I would go to my coach because she would think of questions that I probably wouldn't think of myself to
Mm.
ask about it
Mm.
and to ask about why I'm feeling a certain way.
Mm.
So that usually also helps a lot. And getting in the zone, like if I want to, like if I'm doing these things, I a lot of times like will listen to a podcast episode that is motivating or is about something in the business realm that's scary and out of a comfort zone. Just like hearing about other people's stories kind of reassures me. And it's, I don't know if you're familiar with Jamie Kern Lima. Do you know who she
Mm.
is?
No, I'm not sure I do. Yeah.
So there's a beauty brand called It Cosmetics,
Mm.
and she founded it. Okay.
Okay.
She sold it to Sephora, one of the big companies for over $1 billion.
Mm.
But in her book, she talks about how many no's she got before she got a yes
Mm.
to her brand and to her cosmetics line, and how many times she was told no, 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 and how she was in this like financial rut. She didn't have any money and they were scared they were not going to be able to pay rent. And she talks about how the no's just lead up to a bigger yes. And
Mm.
that's kind of where I get my inspiration from, because at the end of the day, part of doing business is hearing no. And that was something that really that it really rocked me when someone said no to me at the beginning when I first started. So now when I, when I approach a company or a business or whatever, a school specifically, I like walk myself through what would happen if they said no beforehand.
Mm.
So like something like I started planning this boot camp, and my coach actually was saying to me, she's like, okay, what happens if nobody signs up? What then?
Mm.
How are you going to coach yourself through it? And also, how are you going to make sure that this doesn't affect you in terms of seeing yourself as worthy in this business? And she's like, I'm not saying that nobody's going to sign up, because at this point you probably will have a bunch of people, but she's like, but we're going to go there just in case,
Oh,
which was
wow.
interesting. And I actually really appreciated it,
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
because
And
I kind of wish someone had done that with me at the beginning when I first got into the coaching industry.
mm.
Like, what happens when someone says no to you? What kind of how are you going to make sure that your mindset doesn't spiral?
Mm. Yeah.
Nobody did.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, actually, I think that's something that, oh man, because when you're first starting a business, you probably don't even realize how much the mindset matters. So all you're doing is looking for the marketing strategy, right? I mean, at least that was my thing. So there might be people talking about that, but you don't get that. And like, you're the person that needs it. Oh man. Just, and when I say you, I also mean me, just so you know, it's like,
yeah, it's really hard. It's
yeah,
really hard. It's hard to
yeah.
hear no. And especially when you're first starting out and all you want to do is make some money.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so that's something that I've had to like overcome,
Mm,
is this idea that like, okay, just because someone says no doesn't mean I'm not worth it. Doesn't
mm,
mean nobody's going to invest in me.
yeah.
And that's why, like, and so my coach, who has been
Mm,
coaching me for the last 3 years on and off, she
mm,
wasn't my first coach or my
mm,
second for that matter, but she was my last one. And she knows me well. She knows that in the past, a no would have triggered me.
mm,
So she said to me, she was like, okay, we're going to work on this. Whether or not you get people, I'm not doubting your ability to get people in this boot camp. She's like,
mm,
but we're going to do the worst situation, which is nobody signs up, and
mm,
we're going to go from there. We're going to figure out how to manage that mindset so that you don't get into that spiral again.
mm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's such powerful work. Like I know for me in the beginning, like even though I had marketing background and sales training, marketing and sales for other people's products and other people's services, the no's don't hit you as hard, or at least they didn't for
Right.
me. When
Because you're
it was
not building your own
suddenly,
empire.
yeah, yeah, when it was suddenly my own business and that kind of thing, in the beginning, those no's hit me, and it was like one no would mean that I was terrible. I could never make this work. I'd never have the business I wanted, and I'd be stuck in my day job forever. Like, and then I wouldn't want to go and talk to people, even though I had the training and I knew that, hey, a no could just mean that we haven't addressed a concern or an objection. And I know, like, if someone says no, it's like, oh, do you mind telling me why? I'd love to know. And, you can use that and get better. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. I find it amazing that even with that training, I still sort of took it so personally and that kind of thing. Yeah.
I think it's different because I think our businesses end up being like our babies. And
Yeah.
all we want is for the business to grow and to be profitable. And when someone says no, it basically like is it feels like if someone says no, that means that our business is not going to be profitable, which is
Yeah.
not at all true.
Yeah.
But but like that at the beginning, especially, like that's when you're looking at just strategy and you're not looking at mindset, and you're thinking about how am I going to get this profit, and someone says no to you and you're like, shit, like now what?
Yeah. Yeah. Or sometimes for me, hearing the no, it's like, oh, maybe if I'd have just said this other thing better or differently, or oh man, yeah.
Overthinking.
The over analysis and yeah.
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 So how does working through that mindset of preparing for the no, how does that help you to show up better in the conversation?
I think for me, it's like I'm preparing for the worst. And
Mm,
if I can get even 3 people inside, I'd be thrilled.
mm,
Like even one person. But I already know 2 that want to sign up, so I can't really say that.
yes.
But at the end of the day, like it's like it's me preparing for the worst so that my mindset doesn't spiral. But if I get 2, 3, 4 people, I will be so happy. Do I have a goal of a certain number? Yes.
Mm,
But like, I don't know, like I feel like preparing for the worst case is preparing for also the best, because when you're preparing for 0 signups and you get 3, it's a big thing. It's a big deal. Even
mm,
if it's not like the other coaches who have hundreds of thousands of people,
mm,
but you also have to remember where you are in your business versus the other coaches.
mm.
And
Of
that
course, yeah.
sometimes is also hard.
Mm,
So I don't know. I feel like that's that's what it kind of keeps me grounded, because I am the visionary and I am the one who like thinks 5 years in advance. And it keeps me grounded in the sense of like, okay, this is still a baby in terms of business wise. I still have a lot of things to learn, and a lot of places to go in terms of my business. And this is how I'm going to prepare for it, so that when I do get those 3, 4, 5 people inside, I can like really celebrate big.
Mm. Yeah. Oh wow, that's so interesting and just fascinating about that, because like for me, I get a bit scared to prepare for the no on that kind of level, because I feel like that could be attracting it for me. So I kind of work on being detached from the outcome regardless of whether it's yes or no, and just sort of like that's sort of my process a bit more. But yeah, I can
Yeah,
definitely
so
see.
I think part of me getting ready for a possible no
Mm,
is really detaching my feelings, detaching any emotions from that no. It's coaching me through that, or me coaching myself through it, because it's really hard not to feel like it's personal when someone says no, or when someone's not interested, and when no one sides up.
mm,
Like, it feels really personal.
mm,
And for me, when I prepare for nobody signing up, it's me preparing myself to detach those feelings from the outcome.
mm.
Because what I've
Yeah.
done in the past is all my feelings went into it, and how dare they, and my feelings are hurt, and who am I to do this? So why would I think I could? I'm just gonna be done.
Mm,
Like, there, that's kind of where this
mm,
preparation goes.
mm.
And it's not a long preparation. It's
Yeah.
like one coaching session where we talk about it, we work through it, I journal about it, and that's it.
Mm.
And then we leave it.
Yeah. 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 Oh, nice. Nice. Glad to know I'm not the only one who still sort of goes through that stuff and things like that. I kind of always sort of wonder, like, I mean, like on one hand, it's like logically, oh yeah, everybody goes through this. But then on the other hand, it just seems like everyone's kind of got their own, yeah, solution or something. So yeah.
Yeah, I think
So,
everybody copes with it differently, but I
yeah.
think you learn how to navigate the no's so that you
Mm,
can keep going and get those yeses that you're looking for.
yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so one final question,
Mhm.
and that is for the person who they're thinking about doing the next brave thing in their business, but they're also sort of thinking, oh, it's not quite time yet, or I'm not ready, or they're sort of holding back or procrastinating or something. What would be your advice, your words of wisdom? What would you suggest to that person?
Well, there's always a reason why you're procrastinating.
Mm,
There's always a reason, and most of the time it's a mindset block. So, well, my first thought was just do it. Out of fear, even if you're procrastinating, even if you don't have your shit together, just do it anyway.
mm,
But a lot of times there's that mindset blocks that causes you to procrastinate. And I think that the biggest thing that you can do for yourself is be aware of that mindset block.
mm,
So if you're procrastinating, ask yourself why.
mm,
Ask yourself what is stopping you from doing this, and then once you figure it out, take the leap.
mm,
It's easier said than done, but it is worth it, because the last thing you want is to regret that you didn't take that leap,
mm,
that you didn't pursue that passion, that vision.
mm. Yeah.
Those are my words of wisdom.
Love it. Thank you so much for your time today, Adva, and I just really appreciate all of your amazing stories. This has definitely inspired me. I know, like you said, that you like to listen to podcasts to inspire you, and hearing other people's stories, and that's a huge
Mhm.
thing behind this whole podcast of just, hey, it's not overnight successes. It's working through those challenges and dealing with the no's and all that kind of stuff. So thank you so much
Yeah.
for sharing your stories. It's
Thank
really
you for having
appreciated.
me.
Yeah, yeah. And for those listening, like, of course, we'll have links and things in the show notes, but for those who don't feel like clicking and want to just listen and then go straight to Instagram or wherever they can find you, where can they find you?
Instagram is probably the best place to find me. My Instagram handle is Shaping Little Minds Podcast. It is my podcast name, obviously. That is where I am most present. I am on LinkedIn, but not very often. I mean, not at this point.
Yeah. Likewise, I have like a very small thing on LinkedIn, and I'm not over there enough. But yeah, Instagram is
Instagram's the place.
Yeah,
and if you know any teachers, send them my way.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually do still from my times living in South Korea. So yeah, absolutely. Awesome.
Listen, if anyone needs help, I'm here.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Business Bravery podcast. Has this episode inspired you to do something brave? Even if it's only send a difficult email, please share it with me on Instagram or other social media channels. Feel free to tag me at Tiffany G Studios. That's TIFFANY. G for golf, STUDIOS, no spaces, no underscores, etc. Or you can use the hashtag Business Bravery Podcast so that I can cheer you on, and together we can inspire other coaches and course creators to do brave things in their business and life. Now, I'm Tiffany, and I'll leave you with this one last thing. What's one brave thing you're going to do today? It doesn't have to be big. Even the smallest steps can create the most massive results. So again, feel free to share it with me either publicly or privately so that I can cheer you on. That's it from me. Until next time, bye for now.